And let me introduce you Llewellyn Falco. The title of this talk is Process Files, Blueprints for Agentic AI. And we actually met last year. I feel like this talk will be continuation of that talk somewhat.
It's not unrelated.
It's not unrelated. All right, all right. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. Please use Slido if you have any questions, or just raise your hands and I will have this mic.
Yeah.
And I will just hand it to you and you can say it out loud. And well, good luck for the talk.
Yeah, thanks.
And a round of applause for Llewellyn. Sorry about that. Please, a round of applause for him.
So hello, everyone. I'm Llewellyn Falco. I'm a technical coach. I've actually been speaking at Craft since 2016, every year. I really love this conference. This is not the talk I signed up to give. I was going to do a workshop on how to cut code to make it easier to test. But my entire world changed about 2 months ago. And I don't know how not to talk about this. I also don't know how to talk about this, so this might be the worst talk you go to. We'll find out. Let me start. Okay, a couple things. We're going to do a lot of hands-on coding here. We're not going to do it individually. We're going to do it up here. But all that code, the whole Git repo, all the slides, all that stuff is available here. If you want to go on side quests during this thing, go for it. I will show this at the end as well. So let me start by talking about what I mean by my world changed 2 months ago. So 2 months ago is when I started working with Agentic AI. I have been working with AI for a long time. Seriously, looking into it, trying to figure out what it means. Last year, my talk was on using TDD with AI. And it's been really interesting and good. But it changed a lot 2 months ago. Just so I get an idea, how many people here have used Agentic AI? Okay, that's a decent amount, right? I'm seeing 30% of the hands go up. How many people's experiences with it have been good? Okay, that's actually pretty good too. That was only a few less hands than we started with. Cool. How many people have used some form of AI and just found it to be trash? Okay. All right, so let's talk about this experience. This actually happened now 3 weeks ago. I write an open source project called Approval Tests. It's in a lot of different languages. This story happens to come from Go. All right, so we're with the Golang people. And I am using Windsurf as my primary agentic AI. I've used both Cursor and Copilot Agentic as well. I am happier with Windsurf than those, but please don't take this as like a well-vetted endorsement. It's just sort of what I'm doing. And what I mean by agentic is I have the ability to talk to AI directly in the editor. And over here, I have all the files that I'm using. Right? And that's the first big change, right? Which is AI can now see my whole system. Right? Or more specifically, it can see it if it asks. But it knows it can ask. And that's a big difference. So like I said, I'm in Windsurf. We go into the AI part, and I start to have a conversation with AI. And so specifically, I'm like, hey, let's fix bug number 49. And it was sort of what? That's disappointing to me, because that would have been enough for a human, right? But whatever, let's treat it like a slow human. So I give it the URL to the actual bug. And garbage, just complete garbage comes out of this. Right? And that is also disappointing to me, because when I go to this page, it's very clear where the bug is. Right? And to be fair to AI, that's not what it sees, right? Like, it would have to see the whole page. Actually, that's not what it sees either. It sees this, right? It sees the source code. And worse, because of the way like the web works now, this source code invokes a JSON call to load the data, which is the thing I actually want it to see, right? So that's okay. I can look at it on the website, but I can also look at it from my command line, right? Like I can use the GitHub CLI and ask for that, and it'll get back. And this is the crux of what I really want, right? And so I could like copy and paste that. I'm way too lazy to do that. So I just tell it to use the GitHub CLI, and it does. It runs the terminal command, it gets the payload back, and it's ready to fix the bug. And that's amazing, right? Like AI can use tools, or more specifically, it can use your tools. If there are things you can do on your computer, it can now do those things on your computer. So now it's like, should I make the code change? But that is not like good programming practice, right? So I'm like, no, you should write a unit test to confirm that that's a bug, right? It can edit files, so it does. It edits the file, and it's like, yeah, okay, here you are. But, you know, what does that mean, right? So I'm like, run the tests. And again, it can use tools. So it does. It runs the terminal command, and it's like, yeah, the tests are now failing as I expect. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Fix the bug. And again, it edits files, and so it does. Right? But does that fix work? So I'm like, run the test again. And it does. And he's like, yeah, the tests are passing now. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. It's like, should I commit the code? But this is where I actually have to look at what it writes, and like my nose just starts to wrinkle. So the first thing I'm like, please remove those comments. Like, there's just so many comments. So it does. And then I'm also like, and please clean up those names, right? And so it does. But now, like, does the code still work? So I have to ask it again, and it runs the code again. And it's like, yeah, should I commit the code? So I'm like, okay, we wrote the failing test. We got it to pass. We've cleaned up the code. Yeah, let's commit. What's the message? So it gives me this message, but that's not at all how I do messages, right? Like, so I use something called Arlo's commit notation, and so I just fix it. I'm like, no, this is how that message should look. And again, it runs the terminal command, and it fixes the bug. And that is not at all how bug fixing used to look in my world, say, in February, right? This is very, very different. Is this even programming? Like, I don't know. I do know that a lot more of my world looks like this now than it used to look like me actually doing code. And cool, right? Like, bug is fixed. Like, that was cool. That was a good interaction. I would like to have more good interactions with AI. And so I tell it, hey, create a process file based on this conversation. And it does, because it can edit code. And the process file looks like this. This is just a markdown file, right? There's nothing special, particularly, about this file. But it lays out the steps we just went through. It tells me what to do first, like ask for the bug number. It has the individual steps we're going to do, right? From understanding the bug, to writing the test that fails, to fixing the code, to cleaning up and committing the code, right? It tells it to use the GitHub CLI, so I don't have to go through that junk again. And it talks about how I like my Git messages, what that notation is going to look like. These files, totally coincidentally, are helpful for other engineers who come to this project. Right? But there's zero chance I would ever write this for other humans to read. It's nice that they can read it, but I'm not going to do that. Like, they wouldn't be maintained, they wouldn't be well read. Like, that would not be worth the time. It's something I get for free, so I'm happy about it. But the reason I write these is because next time I want to fix a bug, this is what it looks like. Please read the process file and follow the instructions. That's like, great. What bug number are we fixing today? And it gets better. Because remember all those course corrections I had to take it on? Don't have to do that anymore. Bug number 49. Runs the terminal to read the bug. It knows the next step is to write the failing test. It runs the test and sees it fail. It fixes the code. It runs the test and sees it pass. It refactors the code, cleans up those comments, runs the test again, cleans up the names, runs the test again, and then it comes and checks in with me. How about this as a message? I am too lazy to type yes, so I only type Y. And then it commits the code. For decades, what it meant to be a programmer is that we automated other people's work. We automated other people's processes. That's what we do as programmers. And all of a sudden, I'm at a place where what I'm automating is me. And that is exciting. I think it's exciting. It's weird. I'm trying to delay my opinions of it. But it is very, very different. So there's a whole bunch of things I want to talk about in the process of doing this. And that's where this talk is going to start to go a little bit sideways. Because I got a couple problems. If I go and just do a demo, one of two things happens. Either it goes really, well, one of three things. It goes really, really well, and all we do this entire session is watch it scroll by, and then it's done. And that doesn't really teach you a lot or show you anything. Kind of boring. So anything that works pretty well works that way. If I put a lot of my processes in place to make it go that way, then I end up in the same problem. So I need things to go kind of wrong and yet be fixable in 90 minutes. And not entirely sure how to do that, but I figure a good way to get a good odd of something going wrong is we are going to build something that you are going to decide about. So give me some suggestions of what we're going to build. I will tell you, I'm going to do this one in Java because I set up enough infrastructure that I can probably bring it back on track depending on how far off track it goes. So let's hear it. What are we going to build? What is 4? Wait, what is 4? Oh, right, sorry. I tried rehearsing this talk. Probably shouldn't have. Don't think it's going to help. Give me some suggestions of what we're going to build. A to-do app. Cheater. What else? What else are our options here? Online poker. What's co-crotch? What? Conference poker. Cockroach. I have no idea what that is, so I can't even spell that. So super whisper to the west. Cockroach. There we go. What else do we got? Louder. Personal private set? Personal, I'm missing this. Tryness? Finance. Finance. All right, what else we got? Much louder. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Microsoft Office app. Oh, wrong keyboard combos. Microsoft Office app. Okay, any other ideas? Yeah. Minesweeper. Minesweeper. That's not right. And one more if we got it. Yeah. Online multiplayer game. Do you have an idea of what that game would be? First-person shooter. Okay. Sure, why not? All right, so we're going to do vote. You can vote as many times as you want on this. Who wants number 1, the to-do app? Who wants online poker cockroach? Okay. Who wants personal finance? All right. Who wants the Microsoft Office app? All right. Who wants Minesweeper? I think that one's winning right now. Who wants first-person shooter? Well, screw you guys too. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by seeing where you are. And I'm going to do that by asking for a couple volunteers to come up and sort of help me write this code. So if you're interested in like talking and being involved in this, raise your hand. Yep, come on. Come sit up here. Not on stage, can we just pull a couple chairs to the front? Yeah. You don't not need a laptop. I need a couple more people. Anyone else feeling brave? Yeah. Perfect. Just there. This is good. Actually, come closer so you can see the screen and I can hear you, because there's weird echoes going on in this tent. You're going to want to face me, though, because you're going to need to see the screen. All right, so we're going to do this in sort of like a modified mob. I'm going to put you on a fairly quick timer. Actually, let's start with just one. I won't even put you on timer. I'll just have you give me one instruction at a time, and we'll do it. Sorry, so what's your name? Marco. So, Marco, how would you start building this?
I would probably, unfortunately, maybe that's not too YB, but I would think about the technology, and most probably that's going to have to be in JavaScript on the front end. So you're
going to do this as a first-person shooter web technology?
Yeah, I would actually do that with some very, very silly, very basic graphics when I'm navigating a character with JavaScript, and basically that's it.
And so what would you do? We got an app here. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do?
Okay, so I was actually first define what I want to do.
Okay. Are we going to do that in AI? Are we going to do that in a file? Where are we going to do this?
I would do that. I'm mostly using cursor, but the same thing. I would do that. I would do that.
In there.
In the
so
chat.
What do you want me to say? I'll put it right in.
I'm building a FPS game, and I want to start with some basic movement and shooting, and then take it from there.
Sure, let's try it out. So I'm going to go here. I'm building a basic FPS game. I want to start with some basic movement and shooting. Is that it? I'm going to run that prompt?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. All right, so great. It comes back with questions, which is, I think that's great. Which language and framework do you want to do? Do you have a preferred starting point? What platform are you targeting?
I actually love using Unity, but it will be way too
Unity is going to break my Java framework.
Yeah,
So we're going to use something in Java.
It
You
will
want to
be
try a
Java
first-person
plus
shooter
JavaScript, I
in
guess.
JAWT? Can you do that? I have no idea.
I guess it will be Java plus JS. I
All
don't
right.
know if you can do that only in Java. I would love to see that, but I think you will have to do.
I think we're going to do this in JavaScript and Java. So it will be a web app?
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not feasible.
All right, so it's like we got some steps to do. We got to set up a basic HTML JavaScript front end. We need to implement some basic shooting. We need to set up a basic Java backend. Is this good?
Sounds cool.
All right, let's rotate. Give it to the person behind you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chenga.
Jenga?
Yeah.
All right, so, ooh, look, it actually is trying to do stuff. Not successfully. What should we do next?
I think it's
Closer
safe.
to your mouth.
Yeah, I think it's safe at this point to just try to create some kind of context for it that we can kind of circle back to, like any markdown or something that we have kind of like a strong point that we can always say like, hey, but this is the context. So I think it will start to diverge to at some point like trying with different technologies instead of what we already mentioned, because I don't even know if this is possible. And sorry for the idea.
No. So actually, I love that. So let's talk about like a concept. Tell me if I've gotten this right. That's coming in here. So we're going to jump down to this concept. That is not at all what I wanted to do. Let's try that again. Cancel. Here. There we go. Cool. No, but okay. Did it do it? Ah. How about now? Okay, yay. Okay, so a prompt has a bunch of stuff, and as you get to Agentic, we can start like looking at this in a lot of different ways, right? So the one thing we have is this impromptu prompt over here. That's what you've been doing, right? You've just been writing stuff into the prompt and sort of hoping it will work, right? We have process files. We haven't really talked about them too much yet, and we definitely don't have one that we're using. We have examples. We don't have any examples right now, right? Even in the impromptu, there wasn't really an example. But you can also make a data in context, and I think this is what you're referring to, right? Which is like, hey, why don't we make a document that sort of describes what this thing is that we're going to build?
Yeah, so
right.
in simple terms, what you already did for the testing and bug fixing thing,
yep.
Just stop it before it starts to diverge into like coding.
All right, so we're going to do two things. First, you're going to see me do this a lot in this talk, right? So I'm going to reject all of this. I'm going to actually like start just a brand new context. I'm going to throw that away. No offense. I'm also, I'm going to go in here to the starter project. And, okay, so that has reverted all that. Nothing new. And we're actually going to start by going to documents, and we're going to make a new file, and we're going to call it like project spec. Does that sound good? Okay, so let's start with the title for it. What are we building?
Actually, can you bring back the context from the other one? Because then we can ask it to, like, based on what you already said.
We can absolutely do that.
Stop coding and just describe what you understood into the project spec.
Okay. So don't do any coding yet. I want you to describe what you're going to do into. And then I'm just going to drag the actual project file into this, because I find it works much better to actually give it in the phrasing it wants. All right, so it comes back. And it gives me like a lot of stuff. And you know what? Like, there's a part of me that's tempted to read this, but like I do not read this, right? It's just like I'm going to write it into here, and I wait till it does because I'm using source control, right? So like I can always back things out. All right, so let's see what it came up with. We can read it this way. I'm going to read it this way because it's just going to be a lot easier for everyone to see. Basic FPS game project specification. Overview. The project aims to create a simple browser-based first-person shooter game using JavaScript on the front end and Java for any future back-end needs. Are we still happy with that? Okay. For example, multiplayer, score tracking, data persistence. The initial focus will be on the core first-person shooter mechanics, player movement, and shooting. We're still good? All right. Planned features, player movement. We'll use the WASA keys for movement, mouse for looking around. Good with this? Mechanics, smooth, continuous movement in 2D environment.
Let's just pick one, maybe.
I like that, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, just for a second, the meta of what's going on here, right? So that data and context file, this is a thing that is usually being built, right? It's not a thing like, with the other things, usually I come to my prompts with my process files. I come to them with my examples, right? I'm going to do some sort of impromptu prompt, right? But it's usually pretty light. This data file usually starts with nothing, and we start building it up, right? And that is where we have human in the loop. And from my experience, if you don't have human in the loop, this tends to not work well at all. So then we're going to keep building that data and context. So here I have you in the loop, and we built it first. There's sort of three different ways that I tend to build up these data and contexts. One is building a doc. That's literally what we're doing right now. The other is interview me. That you did inadvertently, right? You gave it so little information that it started asking you questions. But you can actually consciously ask it to interview you. We'll see some of that later in this talk. And then the other is this concept that I call preheating, right? Which is where it builds it for you because it's sort of like generally available information. And that's what we did here, right? So we're building a doc. We're doing all three of these. It interviewed a bit. We said build a doc. And then we had it build it for us. And it's sort of making a lot of assumptions just based on, you know, do computers have common sense? I don't know. It's making these things. So here, you're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Let's just do a 3D environment, right? And then this doesn't make any sense. By the way, this is code completion in Windsurf, and I really love this, and it now makes me really grumpy in almost every other place I'm at. Right? Like I was changing my PowerPoint slides, and I had to change, like I did the first one and the second one, and then it made me do the third and the fourth and the fifth, and I was like, what is up with this? Now, a lot of autocomplete looks like that. It's not just finishing your statements, it's fixing the stuff based on where you are. All right. Mouse look. Pointer locks the API for immersive mouse compat. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we rotate, by the way, the mic?
Say it again.
Do we rotate the mic?
I want to keep you until you're happy with this thing, and then I'll let you off the hook.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Game environment. Canvas, bullets, and the boundaries. Things have to stay within visible. We're good?
We're good.
All right. Back-end integration. Placeholder for future things such as multiplayers, high scores, persistence. So we've now like abandoned the Java world, right? It's not necessarily bad, but we might correct that in a moment. Front-end logic. Implement the player music, implement shooting, render the player and bullets on canvas. Seem good? Test and iterations. Test movement and shooting in the browser, refine the controls and visuals based on feedback. That doesn't really help us much. Stretch goals. We're going to kill that completely for now. Like, if we can get to any goals, I'll be happy. This feels reasonable to you.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit more on the tech stack so it doesn't like diverge too much, because we already lost Java, I think.
All right. Do you have suggestions on what you'd like me to change?
Maybe it already has some context because it was like suggesting things. Maybe you can ask it to like extend with the like tech stack relationships or something, like a very simple diagram of how that architecture kind of looks like.
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you want me to change in the document, though. Where would you like me to change it?
I wouldn't change it in the document. I would ask it to change the document for you with like a very simple architecture diagram.
Ooh, okay, architecture diagram. Cool. Let's rotate the mic. Give me 1 second before you introduce yourself. So this makes complete sense. And I'm going to not jump into the JavaScript world with you, just because there are things I specifically want to show you that I need things like compilers for and reasonable test. So we are going to take what is a very reasonable document and make it not reasonable. So this is, what do you say, like initial spec. And I am going to just change this whole thing to be using Java. And we will use AWT, which that doesn't seem reasonable at all, but why not? Is there anything else I need to change to modify that here? Project structure, yeah. Okay, this one right here. Good point. And, sorry, what else? Number 4. Okay, and then that means our project structure doesn't need to be here. Front-end logic needs to be here, and no back-end prepped. Okay. Oh, yeah, where does it say browser-based? We can, but I'm going to hand edit at the moment. So what is that called, apps that run on your computer? What's not browser-based? Desktop, that's the word I'm looking for, thank you. Desktop-based first-person shooter using Java. Yeah, okay. So, in a terminal? that might be pushing it a little bit. Okay, so this is good. You mentioned that you want to get an idea of the architecture diagram. Oh, sorry, so I'm going to commit this as well. Just Java only. Sorry, introduce yourself.
I'm Benny.
Say again?
Benny.
Benny. Okay, Benny, how are we going to create this architecture part?
I don't know if it's capable for drawing or like architecture, like using UML or whatever. But we could ask him to throw up, like, I don't know, first use cases or just what objects we have. If we want it object-oriented, I guess, in Java.
All right, are you going to do it in the same context window, or are we starting here? Because this still kind of thinks it's a JavaScript.
Yeah, I think we should choose a new one, like start a new one.
All right.
And we can just pass in the file that we just created.
Yeah, okay, so please read our project spec. This is one of the really nice things about having these extra external pieces, right? I can drop context and start a new one. We'll talk a lot more about why that's important as we go, but we'll come back to it. So what's the rest of your prompt?
let's create, based on this project spec MD file, the basic diagrams for designing the architecture of our game.
And where is it going to put this diagram?
And let's create another MD file. Can we place it in MD?
In, what would you like that to be called? Architecture spec?
That could be nice.
Architecture spec. That is not spelled right. Architecture spec. .md. Is that the whole prompt? Do you want anything else before I try running this?
Well, I don't know if we want to give some restrictions, so let's start with first use cases or whatever, but I think it's enough.
All right, let's see what it does. So, a couple things I want to point out as it's doing this. First of all, you'll notice this puzzle piece. Right? So Windsurf and pretty much all agentic AIs have some concept of rules. This is the rules for here. I am horribly disappointed with rules, so I try to keep mine as short as possible. But you will see that it starts with this little piece here. Always use or add the starting character followed by a space at the start of your reply. The starting character will change for each process file in progress. Default starting character is this puzzle piece. Right? So you can see these puzzle pieces are showing up. Why do I do this? This is an idea. This specific implementation of this idea I learned from Lotta Kessler, but the idea itself I learned from Van Halen. So Van Halen is a band, and when they would go, they'd have people like set up their equipment. And they had like really detailed instructions on how to set up the equipment, and they included things like snacks, right? And one of the things in their document was, M&Ms, warning, absolutely no brown ones. Which feels like a kind of dick move, right? Like, 'cause some poor person has to like pull all the brown M&Ms out of the bowl. But the thing about this is that it gave Van Halen two advantages. One, it could walk into the room and look at the M&Ms, and if there were no brown ones in it, they could be like, probably they set up our sound equipment right, which is useful because, like they had complicated sound equipment. You couldn't guarantee the sound equipment was set up right just because there's no brown M&Ms. But if there were brown M&Ms, you could guarantee the sound equipment was not set up right. Right? So it's the same thing with the puzzle piece. With the puzzle piece there, I know it's reading my rules. I can't guarantee it. But if that puzzle piece goes away, I know it's not. I know it's forgotten about my rules. Right? You will see that happen. It's going to happen less because we just cleared our context again. All right, so let's see how it did. I'm going to accept all here. We got an architecture spec. We got a mermaid diagram. Not bad. Let's see what that looks like. That looks like nothing here. So let's move over to IntelliJ for a moment. I don't know why, but I find myself moving between these two editors a lot. I hope there'll be a future where I'm just working in IntelliJ. That future is not here yet. Claude Code, yes. I've moved between those two as well. So let's open up docs, look at our architecture spec. Let's render that. That is not good in Mermaid. Who knows? Maybe this was rendering it right. Are you good with that, Benny? Do you want to try asking it to fix the mermaid?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
The mermaid doesn't work. Please fix it. to an ASCII diagram instead. That, you know what? I don't really mind that. I'm kind of happy with that. How do you feel about it?
Well, if it can understand this diagram without it being mermaid, then
It feels
it's
good.
fine.
Yeah. Okay. And somehow it knows how to change the thing. Yeah, which, that's better than I do. What? Did it? How so? I might have missed it. Okay, so the comment is like, it was like, mermaid's too hard, so I'm going to do something different. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. Which, that's valid, I guess. I mean, it's still something happy. Let's try this for a second. I'm going to just shelve that change. Okay, so I'm going to accept all here so that we're in that place. I'm going to take this and shelve it. Shelve silently. Yes, please shelve silently. Oh, why is it grayed out? Oh, yeah, that's probably right. Okay, can I shelve it here? Nope. Stash all changes. There we go. Okay. Let's go back. I'm just going to start a brand new context here. And let's use just a slightly different prompt, right? Please read the project spec. And draw me a mermaid diagram of the basic architecture in the UML format in the file, architecture spec. Let's see if we get a different result with this. So while it's doing that, I want to talk about another thing, because you'll notice now I have started three new contexts in the course of this talk, right? And part of what's enabling that is that I have these other files right? And because I have these other files, I don't have to it's not a problem to throw away that context. I can get what you did right back by just giving the thing. But that's not the only reason I do that, right? The other reason I do that is because LLMs have this concept of a context window, right? Which is sort of like how much data it can process in your prompt, right? And those context windows have gotten pretty large, often millions of tokens. Right? What is a token? You can kind of think of it like a word. It's not a word, but it's useful to think of it that way, right? And so people are like, wow, millions of tokens. That's amazing. But the problem is there's also a concept, like we start filling that context window up, right? And what we find very early is that we run against something else called an effective context. And this is not a technical limitation of how much the LLM can remember. This is like a conceptual idea that, somewhere the attention model starts to severely degrade. And that effective context seems to be in the 10 or 20,000 tokens, right? Even if you have 1 million tokens for a context window. So way before we hit a physical limit of memory, we hit this sort of like a useful limit of memory. My friend Jay Buzazi is like, it can remember 7,000 things plus or minus 2. So I am often restarting to make sure our context window is clean. Let's see what it did. I'm going to accept all of this. We're going to open up this So notice very different results with a very similar prompt. What was the difference in the prompt? I said mermaid, yeah. So you said it changed its restriction, but that's actually not even entirely true because we didn't ask it to do mermaid in the first place. It chose to do that, didn't do it successfully, and then went back and chose to change it. Also, notice it pretty much only drew the diagram here, whereas the previous document had quite a lot of text, right? I didn't read it. Maybe someone else did. I don't know if it was useful. But I kind of like this. Let's put human in the loop again. We'll move the microphone over. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Yvette.
All right, an event. So my first question is do you like this diagram? Should we be fixing this, changing it?
Gotta think about it for a second.
Yeah. So we've got a game loop here. We got a shooter, that feels good. We have something that renders the stuff, that feels legit. We have a player, we have a projectile, we have something that handles inputs.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I would actually say that the input handler, shouldn't it be part of the game loop?
Sure, let's fix that. So game loop is going to player here. I'm not super good with mermaid, but I'm really good at patterns. So it looks to me like if game loop goes to player, and what was the one you were talking about, input handler?
I would say that the game listens to the input handler.
Let's see if that does what we want. We still have the input handler coming from the player, so I didn't quite do what I wanted. Input handler, here. Okay, so let me undo shooter and handler. So we don't want both of these. We just want game loop like that. Is that better? Yeah.
We asked for searches on the internet, nice architecture that works on actual games, and take it as an example and use that.
We could, but it looks like we might have one that works.
I feel like I'm happy with this. Although, let's try it with this. I kind of have the feeling that maybe later on we will want to have some kind of relationship between the player and the input handler. But as a starting point, that seems reasonable.
Okay. What's the next thing we're going to do?
So my next step would be, and probably I would have started with that a bit earlier, is to generate an empty world, like a 3D empty world with this architecture.
I like that. So generate an empty 3D world. Yeah. Right.
Maybe, For now, let's make it empty, and then we can put a person in it.
So I'm going to take one step back for just a moment. And I want to start with what did we just do? So I'm going to make a new file here. Right? Now, we've flipped contexts a couple times. So right now, asking it to create it for me, not going to be that good. So let's start our new project. .process.md. Okay, so first process file. So new process. And then the next thing I almost always do in here is steps. The other thing I'm going to do is the starting character. We need a starting character for when we do new projects. Right. What's a good starting character for new projects? A what? A rocket. Ooh, I like that. Let's see what it comes up with. Give me 10 examples of emojis that would be good for starting a new process. I'm curious if it gives me the rocket. If it does, it's yours. First one. Look at that. That is a man who knows AI right there. All right. Step number 1. What is the very first thing we did? We actually started with a project here. What was the first thing we did? You were first. What was the first thing?
Explain what you want to do.
All right. So ask for what the project is. A brief description of the project. What do we do next? Remove everything that isn't, essential. I liked essential. That was good. Essential to the project. For the purposes of simplifying it, for the purpose of making a MVP. Oh, yeah, what is that?
You wrote a markdown file to store the details of how it would build the project. That's what you removed everything from.
So to do that, we kind of, we just did it in something called project spec, right? So create I'm going to use backticks on this. Docs project spec file, and start populating it with, how did you say it? Descriptions?
Information about how you would do the project?
Yeah, with the information. Next, remove everything that isn't essential.
Define tech stack.
Okay, so that's where we moved to you. Define the tech stack. And so we're doing that still in the project info, the tech stack, right? Add that to the project spec. And then we started doing the architecture diagram. So I'm going to put this into 2 different steps. So this is like define project. This is going to be define architecture. Reread the project spec and create a UML diagram of the architecture in a, does that feel legit?
Using Mermaid.
Oh, yes, thank you. Using Mermaid. All right. So now I'm going to commit all this. Process file. And now I'm going to delete what we did. Move to trash. Try to. Okay. So, new context. This prompt is almost always the same. Please read, always be polite. It's trained on humans. It does better when you're polite, and it might remember. Please read new project process and follow the instructions. So it's going to read those, and then look at all these questions. Right? Let's begin with step 1. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. All right, Yvette, step one. Please provide a brief description of the project you want to create.
So we want to build a first-person shooter, a 3D first-person shooter desktop app.
Shooter, say again?
Desktop app.
Desktop app.
In Java.
In Java. Good?
And initially, we want to start with an empty world.
Initially, we want to start with what?
With an empty world.
With a what? Empty world. Oh. Initially, we want to start with an empty world. All right, let's see what it does. Creating the process spec. Struggling to create the process spec. It could be my network. As not necessarily wrong, but I did put gping up earlier because I was terrified about that as well. All right, create the docs. Remove everything that isn't essential to the thing. So let's see what it did here. So we created us a project spec. Not too bad. We are building a 3D person shooter in Java. Initially, we'll present an empty world, serving as a starting point for further development. Our goal is to create a minimal viable product that establishes the core 3D environment and controls. No additional features or assets in the initial version. Nice? It's oddly nicer than what we had before, right? Like, that's one of these weird parts about as we start to develop the process files. Not only does it become easier, right? I get better results. Oddly, it doesn't save me as much time as I would hope. It's just easier and I get better results. I don't know why that is so far. You'll have to tell me as you figure out more. MVP spoke. We got an empty world. We got first-person cameras controls. We got a Java desktop application. That feels legit. Tech spec. Language to be determined. Oh, that's interesting. It gave us choices. Kind of like that. Build tool. Graven or Mavel. Platform. OK, so let's modify that. Let's rotate the speaker. Introduce yourself again. Tell us where you're from.
My name is Marco, and I come from Serbia.
Nice. All right, Marco. We have this new project. This is in preview. I just want to see the project spec itself. I want to clean this up. So again, we're going back to this concept. Oh, by the way, you'll notice the rocket. It's listening to us, right? Both our rules file, which, if you remember, is a puzzle piece, and our process file, which says while we're doing this process, use the rocket ship. I want to clean this up, right? So we're back to human in the loop. We'll do this one last. What desktop are we going to use?
Well, obviously something that it's easiest to test with, so macOS.
We're going to use Mac, yeah, because I'm on a Mac. What are we going to use as our build?
I just know Maven good enough.
That's a good choice, because that's how I have it set up. What about here? LGL or JMonkey engine?
Never worked with either one.
Me neither. So your guess is as good as mine. One of the things that is really interesting about this is if I go down the path of one and it doesn't work, I can switch and try it again to the other. There's times where you almost want to do both at the same time, but if you're not using something like Claude Code where you can just parallelize it and look at it in the morning, I figure choose one and then swap, right? That's the way I tend to do it. By the way, we haven't done it yet either here. At the moment, we're using GPT 4.1. But if it gives me bad results, I'm happy to like start switching my AI agents as well, which I can do very easily because, again, I can clear my context easily. There's something I should mention about this as well. So, where are we here? Train for Agentic. Okay, so when you build an LLM, not you, we don't build LLMs, we use LLMs. When OpenAI or who builds Claude?
Anthropic,
thank you. Or Google builds an LLM, there's a step in there called reinforcement learning. And in that step, they give it prompts and they check like, hey, how do I like the answer of these prompts? It is part of how you build the AI as you're making it, right? And up until recently, if you gave it a prompt and it was like, run this terminal command and get back to me, you'd be like, no, that's not a good result. Or if it was like, hey, here's a diff, can you apply it to a file? Or will you copy in these lines from the file and let me read them? Like those would be bad responses on the website, right? So it wasn't trained to ask questions and use tools and get stuff back. Right? Claude was the first place where this started being trained to do that, right? Because Claude Code is the oldest. Right? So Claude 3.5 is trained for Agentic. Chat 4.1, which came out about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, in public release, is also trained for it. Google Gemini, which came out, I think, 3 weeks. I should mention, probably everything I talk about in this talk will be obsolete by the time we're done. Is trained. Those are the first ones I know of from there. There's a new one, Sui, that's from Windsurf itself, who was bought by OpenAI. I don't know what the relationship is between these LLMs, but that's also trained. My point is, this space is moving really fast. And I expect that like in 6 months, all of the back-end things are going to be trained on Agentic. And what it means to be trained, like, because we have Agentic, but then we also have tooling in Agentic, so like, is it trained for that? Like, all of that is going to be a really fast-moving space, right? My point is just be aware that it's a fast-moving space, and you can get very different results by switching to different things. And if you're in something like, say, deep dive, DeepSeek, or say Llama, you're probably going to get really bad results out of this. I also think that's why like the JetBrains tooling right now is just not very robust. I haven't used Genie myself, but my reports have not been happy. All right, let's go back. We're going to accept all here. Yeah, it's fine. Which one do you want to use?
First one, I guess.
First one.
Yeah, I guess it thinks it's better.
Cool. Done. Do we know that this exists? I have no idea. I just heard about it too. Yes. And you know what? Let's just add that in. All right. Are we happy with this? All right. Let's continue on then. We'll do the next step. Once you confirmed or selected, so I'm going to tell it, I've edited the file. Please reread. By the way, you can see up here your modified files. It kind of knows that anyways. So why do I restate it? I don't know why I restate it. I seem to get better results when I do. Okay, great. So I've redone it. Architecture might include here. Would you like me to implement or process the implementation?
I always love
Oh, wait, it made the document already. Should we look at it? No, okay. Accept all changes. So now we have the main app, we have the renderer, goes to the camera. No player at this point. Do we want to add a player?
I'm fine with that. It could be more detailed, but I'm fine with that.
All right. What's our next step? Well, first of all, let's pause here for a moment. So, new specs. We did it once the first time. We did it impromptu, right? Then we used that experience to write the process file that we just went through, right? Is that programming? Like, we have not written any Java code yet. Was that programming? Like, are we programming yet? Yeah. I mean, I think we are.
When someone sets washing machine to start in the night, it's also programming. So
Maybe.
fine with this.
These process files, they travel with me a lot, right? Because they have no context, right? So if I do another project, like I might be like, oh, let me grab that process file. Let's get our project started. I don't feel like we've done enough of the thing, so let's start this one proactively from the process file, right? There's two things I'm going to do to this. The first is we are going to sort of restart this process. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say always ask the user if this is resuming work in progress, or starting new. All right, this is the first thing. Always seems to be a really useful word. Never is also a really useful word. Not is not. Try not to use not. See, it doesn't even work for me. Okay, what is the next thing you want to do?
Well, I usually use the GitHub or Jira MCP and create a list of issues based on this, or we can do that just in a file. But I like
Great.
it to
So how's this sound? I'm not going to use Jira because I like you guys. Create a to-do list. What are the steps going to be here?
read both files, project spec and architecture spec, and write tasks in chronological order.
How many tasks would you like it to come up with?
Well, it really depends on the size of the project. I would just I would say for this like 10 to 20.
10 to 20 tasks. I like that. I like a range, right? 10 to 20 tasks to complete the project. Is there an ordering you would like for these tasks?
Yeah, I really love the ordering, and it's
Ordered
quite important.
by what?
Chronologically, dependence, whatever.
You can't say whatever. You got to tell it something.
Chronologically.
Chronologically. All right. Chronologically. We're just going to say ordered chronologically, but I hope it knows what that means. Where are we going to put these? Confirm it with the user and add it to a file?
Yes, but also inside that file we need to state it should track progress. So it should mark which ones of them are finished, which ones of them are in progress.
I love it. Okay, so we're in a to-do list. I'm just going to call it to-do. And track which ones are done and which ones aren't. Does that sound good? All right, let's rotate. Let's see how this worked. Introduce yourself again. Tell me where you're from.
Hi, Chenga again, and I'm from Hungary.
Hungary. Are you here from Budapest, or?
No, I'm originally from Romania, but I live here now.
Nice. Should we try this out?
Yeah. Maybe just, it just bugs me that we have multiple ones. Can we fix this?
That's true. Like, that could be a 2.
Yeah, and for the defined project too. Thank you.
All right, so brand new context. Please read, and let's commit before we do. So as a general rule, before I do anything with AI, I'm doing a commit, even if it's just like a work in progress commit, because AI might do who knows what to who knows where, right? Update process file, that's perfectly fine. Please read the new process file and follow the instructions. All right, rocket. Are we resuming or starting new?
Resuming.
Resuming. This, by the way, is amazing, right? The fact that I can like break my context and just pop back in like fresh, right? Like I don't have to worry about my effective context. I don't have to worry about blowing that. I don't have to worry about the fact that I can break my things into multiple steps. All right, if you would like to update the to-do list or mark tasks as completed, let me know, specify which one. So do we have a to-do list yet? We do. Yay, thinking stuff. Accept changes. Set up the major project structure. Is that good?
Maybe not. You mentioned that you already have something.
I already do. You want me to check it off?
Yeah.
Add this as a dependency.
Yeah, we don't have that, but that makes sense.
All right. So, what are you going to ask it to do next?
I would ask it to check the folder, because then it will realize that the first thing is done.
Reasonable, but you get to decide.
Yeah, I would actually do the same, like ask it to just compare this list to what we already have in your project and just check if we have to do anything.
Please compare the list to what's already in the project and check off the things that are already done. So I'm just reading through this. Implement, none of that's done. Render, implement, create, display, ensure application runs, add basic documentation for setup and running, add a README with build instructions, and version the initial thing. We will talk about those in a second. Does any of those stand out to you as like, oh, that doesn't feel right?
The version control, the last one, we are already doing that. And why would we do that at the end?
We'll take it out.
Thank you.
All right, now what do you want to do? So basically what it's saying is, really, all we've done is set up the Maven project. And that is correct. That is all I've done.
Let's start with number 2.
Let's start. Would you like to use the latest stable?
Yeah.
Too lazy to type yeah. All right, so it's editing my PALM file. we need to talk about another concept here. So you've already noticed, like, we're on like the 5th or 6th time I've restarted context, right? So I throw context away a lot, right? And a big part of that, again, is I just want to keep my context clean. I want to keep my effective context low. I really care about, oh yeah, sorry. Line 12, ensure it runs on Mac OS. Should we put that earlier is the question. That's a good question, I think. Yeah. I mean, are you good with that?
Sure.
Oh, that's not what I'm wanting to do. That is what I'm wanting to do. I'm going to accept all of this. So I want to point out this line over here, because a lot just happened over here. It ran the tests, right? Which is great. That's exactly what it should do. It just added dependencies to my Maven. I want to see that it still builds and works.
Did you have tests, by the way?
We will get to that. And then also, I want to point out, notice what happened. Notice the terminal output. Right? Built, 3 test pass. So, I want to talk about both of those two things. Okay, so up until this point, computers have just been one thing, right? They've been deterministic automated machines. And now, with AI, computers are kind of two things, right? But a lot of times, we still treat it as sort of one thing. And I think that is a huge mistake, right? I think you should take everything that is deterministic and everything that is AI fuzzy logic and sever those two things so they are completely separate. I do not want AI doing anything that I can have a script do. Right? So, terminal commands. It needs to run the tests. It did, right? Now, we're in Java. It can read my project, and it can figure out that I'm in Java. And Java only is, well, basically, built in Maven or Gradle. It can realize that I have a POM file and realize I'm building in Maven. There's some feature flags you can pass when you run Maven. There's like a lot of them, but it can figure that out. And then if I'm going to do a build, it's some combination of clean, verify, install, like some version of these will come together. And it can do all of that. And I do not want it doing any of that. So I've done two things. First of all, you'll notice in my rules, here's how you run tests. Build and test script. Don't overthink this. Right? And then the other part is if I was to run that, it would do all this, it would dump all this data into my context. Right? Now, we're programmers, and so we know how to read this, and very specifically, we read bottom up. So we're like, oh, build success, we're done. Which means we do not ignore the top. We never read the top to ignore it. But AI does not have that luxury. AI would have to read all of that to then realize it should be ignoring all of that. I don't want it to have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Maven verify, and I'm going to use the flags output equals AI. Right? Or I would do that if it existed. If you write tools, please make this flag exist. This does not exist right now, so I'm going to do some bash magic, where I take everything that comes out from running it and put it into a temporary file, and then if it passes, I'm going to grep that temporary file for a little bit. I didn't write this code myself. I had AI write it for me. But this is what this script looks like. right? And what that means is when it passes, I get very, very little output. So my context does not get polluted. I do need that output if things fail. So that whole thing gets put if I fail, right? And then my context does get polluted, but at that point, I want it to be polluted, right? Because I want it to figure out what's important in all of that. Oh, just because of timing, I should mention. So, process files. We've been writing some. You might be familiar with workflows in Windsurf, or instructions in Copilot, or rules in Cursor. That is what you are seeing here when I go to this part, right? They usually look some variation of this. And you might be like, aren't those process files? And my answer would be like, yes, except for some reason it doesn't work very well when I do this. Right? The rules of always on and stuff don't always go on. I don't know why. Or if I try to get it on a specific instance, doesn't seem to do it. I don't know why. The markdown editor here, look, it's not even rendering my markdown. I don't know why. Like, for some reason, these don't work as well as me just making process files and asking them to read them, which have the added advantage that I can move between the agentic AIs and reuse them. Right? I hope in the future, when I talk to you, this will not be true. That I will be telling you, use the stuff that the tools actually built for you. Like, they work better. They should work better. I don't know why they don't. All right, so where are we in our process? We have a working PALM file. We should commit that. It's not much, but it's progress. And it checked off the thing. How nice. Commit it. Yeah, that looks good. Hey, I'm even lazier now. Rotate, let's do the next thing. What are we doing next?
I guess we could rearrange the numbers, like the order. That's a bit diverged right now. And since we have the order, let's proceed with the next step. I don't know, we could check if the next 1, 2, or 3 are related, and we could do them together. Like,
so right now it says ensure it runs on Mac, but we don't even have the application. Do you want to move that down?
Yeah, a bit below.
So then the next one would be implement the main app entry point.
Let's go with that.
All right.
Do we
Please,
do we want to create like a test before anything, or is it in the rules that it will create the test for us, or?
This is your choice. What would you like?
I just saw the process files with the TDD and everything for you already prepared, and if they are containing any useful, like setting up tests, we could use them to have tests first for the features, and let's make it write code that completes those tests.
I think that's a good idea. I'm a fan of TDD. Considering that this is the front door, I would suggest we go through the front door first and then add tests for everything after getting through the front door.
All right, let's go.
Does that make sense?
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to have it reread the file, reread the to-do list, and do the next item?
Yeah.
All right, looks like we're creating the main Java app. Rocket ship, it's still on task. Okay, here's the problem. How do I run the app? I know how to build the test. I showed you how I build the test. How do I run the app?
Can I just type run?
We can definitely try that. Let's see what happens. Run.
Not
Command not found. All right.
Do we have something like for the test that we have a script for running the application?
Let's rotate and we'll go from there.
All right.
Introduce yourself again. Oh, sorry. Introduce yourself. Tell me where you're from.
I'm Benny from Hungary.
Benny from Hungary. Are you also from Budapest or are you from outside?
I'm living here, but from another city.
Nice. Introduce yourself. Tell me where you're from.
I'm Yvette, and I live in Germany.
Germany. All right. So we cannot type run, but it would be really nice if we could type something like that. What are we going to do?
I would say to the AI, either tell me how do I run the app, or actually that's what I would do first, and then if it works, then I would tell it to make it a run bash or something. But I would
Let's start with the bash job.
Okay, then let's tell it to create a run shell file that starts the app.
All right.
Or it's Maven, so it could be
a run.sh.
Yeah, that could
script.
be one. Or we could use Maven to run it. I
We
just
could
realized
use
that it's
Maven, but now I go back to my earlier place that I'm making it think, what is the Maven command that I do it? I have no problem with it making a run script that uses Maven, but I don't want it to have to figure out how to call things, right? Let me know if you proceed to the next step or need help testing the script. Did it make the run script? It did.
Okay.
Let's see if it works.
Run.sh, I guess. And we need to add permission to it.
It doesn't run. Now it does.
Yay.
Not really seeing anything, but possibly that worked.
Let's tell it that we don't see anything.
No.
It ran and then we didn't see anything. Why is that?
It just compiles.
Yeah.
It says build success.
No, about that. No, not that one. Just about that. Main app started.
Oh, right here, yes. So what Marco was pointing out here is this part right here, main app started, which is cool. It doesn't do anything. Yeah. I want to point out this batch script is not, it's not actually too bad. I'm reasonably happy with it. It's not great. I'm going to pull up another process window for a second and say, please read. So I have a bash script process file and clean up run sh. Didn't really put that where I wanted it to put it. Let's try again. There. Just a little bit nicer. We've talked about process files, but I'll just take you through here. Right? It says what to use for there. It says to use the EOU pipe fail. If you've ever written a bash script, you should always use those. It says to be minimal, check for invalidations, don't do extra. All these lines have been things that I've run up against before that I didn't like it doing. Right? And rather than having to remember all that, I now just have a process file here's how I want my bash scripts. I'm going to take a small side quest for a moment. We haven't really actually gotten to code yet, although if I do go to my thing, hey, look, a Java file. So code, maybe? Main app. And I'm going to take you through one other, well, first of all, big round of applause for everyone. Thank you for volunteering for who knows what. I'm going to take you through one other process file I do that does not look like programming at all, but is still something I kind of think like programming. So I'm a consultant. I work with teams. I coach them. And at the end of the day, I write a daily process file, like a status file. So I'm going to write one for what we just did. So let's switch projects here. Coaching personal. So by the way, this is only a section of a repo, right? Like this repo is actually quite bigger, and I'm in a subfolder of it. That's a thing I find myself doing also a lot with Agentic. Like I will open up a Discord folder or a subfolder of my, or not Discord, Obsidian, my notes. Like I'll go into a subsection of my notes, and I'll give it a process file that says like, hey, read everything in here, and like find the patterns and write up a review of what I've done, right? So we're in a subfile here. We're going to do something like that. I am not going to use Chat4 for this. I do not know why. I like Gemini 2 Pro better for this kind of stuff. Can't tell you why. And I'm going to say, like, please read personal daily status and follow the instructions for today's status. All right, so let's zoom in over here. All right, so this uses more of what we were talking before. I have examples, I have a process file. I guess we can call that an impromptu prompt. And now we're going to start to build the data in context, right? So so we're creating for today, Thursday. Yay. What was the main focus from yesterday? No. So the main focus is from today, right? So the main focus is from today. I want to talk about the talk I presented at the Craft 2025 conference. Determining title, next step in the process file. Craft talk, craft presentation. I think I like craft talk. It needs a short file because I need file names. Great. What did you do regarding the talk? I gave a talk on how to use process files in Agentic AI. We decided to just wing it and pick a project. We decided to pick a first-person shooter in JavaScript, but I didn't let them do that, and I forced them to use Java. We didn't actually get much into the code, mainly went through defining the project and then making a project file to define the project, and then using the project file or the process file to define the project from the process file. It was a bit recursive. Okay, good start. Let's add that to the talk. What surprised you during the talk? That any of it worked. Great, what went well? We did get some lines of Java that did nothing. We also created a process file. I kind of like it. I might reuse it. What progress was made during the talk? We got the start of the project going, and we have a to-do list that I can follow to complete. All right, I'll add that to the section. So now it's editing this file for me, which we can see over here. 2005-29 Craft Talk. Again, I'm just going to accept all without even reading yet. But human in the loop. So let's go into here. Today, I gave a talk on how to process how to use process files in Agentic AI. We decided to wing it for the demonstration, picking a project on the fly. The initial idea was a first-person shooter in JavaScript. However, I guided the audience towards Java instead. Guided. That's very nice. We didn't delve deeply into the coding. Main focus was on the project, creating the thing. What surprised me, honestly, that any of it worked. What went well, we managed to do this. We created. So that's good. This is an email I could send out. We're not done with the process yet, though, so let's pull that out. No pain points. Next. Here are 5 possible titles for an image. Agentic process power, crafting thing, Java process file, recursive AI design. I so love that, but I think I'm going to do number 5, AI live demo. And in the style of, number 5. Digital art, futuristic, pixel art. I feel like pixel art is the right answer for this. And again, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to accept it all, but it has now made me an image prompt, which I will go and take to chat. Please draw. It's not spelled right, but it doesn't matter. This takes about a minute. While it's drawing that, here's the actual process file that I'm using for this. First of all, you'll notice it's about 59 lines long. I find that most of my process files end up in sort of that range. If you're going to like hundreds of lines in your process file, you are doing something wrong. And the key phrase you want to do after you do it is say, please reread and improve and simplify. Like, if you just ask it to improve, it just adds stuff to your file. Simplify seems to be the key word to get that down. Also, I started by handcrafting this, then I would ask it to keep modifying. My experience is it's sort of like 4 to 5 times. Right, like the first time it modifies it quite a lot, and then it modifies this a little, and by like the 4th or 5th time, it just works good enough that I don't need to keep modifying it. Your mileage may vary. Yeah, that feels legit. I'm going to download that, drag that into my windsurf, go back to my thing here. It actually has a name for it already, so I'm just going to copy that name and put it in there. Render that, and then I just copy and paste that into my Gmail. That's a little bit of a lie, actually, because if I copy and paste that into my Gmail, I'm opening Gmail live on stage. Cannot be a good idea. You'll notice the image doesn't come in, right? So what I usually do is I put 4 stars here. I go to the middle of the stars, and then just drag the image into here, and then I delete the stars. And that's my email. And that's how I create my emails. And again, it takes me about as much time as it used to take when I would write it, but I get much better results. And I really like the pictures. And it's easier. It's just easier. It keeps asking me, so it's easy to answer. I don't have to keep, pushing to it. Is that programming? I don't know. Yes, maybe. There's no code. It's not Python. It's not Java. But it is a process that I do every day that I'm now automating. I don't know. Anyhow, this is process files. I hope this is helpful for you. If you have questions, come and ask me. Like I said, all resources and I'll push the repo at the end of this, are here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations for such a unique talk.